As we start this week, we're covering several stories. You may remember last week the news of Congress actually subpoenaing a former president, Donald Trump. There's some paperwork continuing, and so the official subpoena we may get tonight or tomorrow. No one really knows what comes after that. But we do know something about subpoenas from the January 6th committee. Most of them have been followed, and those that have been defied come with consequences. Steve Bannon completely stonewalled the committee. He was held in contempt in that vote. Then he was put on trial. Then he was convicted, and now he awaits sentencing Friday. The DOJ, new today, has said how long he should serve. They are recommending 6 months in jail and a $200,000 fine. They also note that Bannon, far from trying to make up for his problems, is unlawfully withholding documents and testimony to this day. And they note this is an authorized investigation. Trump, meanwhile, faces his own decision. Does he want to follow what his aide did? It might be a different treatment for a former president, but Bannon's case shows there can be consequences. Meanwhile, amidst all this, you sometimes wonder, is everyone following it as closely as we are? Well, in a sense, maybe yes, because those hearings, which were televised across cable, including Fox News, were a big enough deal that SNL decided that people would get the joke if it was the opener, the kind of cold open of the new SNL this weekend. But with that comes the cost or the price for some of the people involved, a lot of satire poking fun at some of the people running the committee.
I would first like to recognize the gentle lady from Wyoming, who I am shocked to say has become my best friend, Liz Cheney.
Thank you, Benny. Over the past few months, this bipartisan committee has presented our case to all Americans. Whether you're a Republican who's not watching or a Democrat who's nodding so hard, your head is falling off. One person is responsible for this insurrection, Donald Trump. And one person will suffer the consequences, me.
That's the punchline, although electorally so far it's also true. Meanwhile, back outside of parody land, an actual congressman who was also parodied in that skit, Congressman Kinzinger, talks about whether they might go the Bannon route. If Trump defies, could he be held in contempt?
Do you believe that the Justice Department, if the president refuses, should hold him in criminal contempt?
Look, that's a bridge we cross if we have to get there. Look, we well recognize the fact that because of the committee only being able to exist till the end of this congressional year, we're at a bit of a time limit here.
We turn to a DOJ veteran, former acting U.S. Solicitor General Neil Katyal. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Let's start with the most concrete development. We're learning for the first time they're seeking 6 months against Bannon. Not nothing, not zero, not the potential full 2 years if they tried to max out. What is your view as a DOJ veteran of what they're doing there and how a judge might look at that?
Well, I think it's the right call, Ari. So the sentencing guidelines have a fairly low range for criminal contempt. It's a weird quirk in the guidelines. And so I think the 6-month sentence is right that they're seeking because Bannon has been all about defiance and never about compliance. And there's two rationales for punishment in our system. One is deterrence and the other is retributivism. And both of them, I think, are met here. I mean, Steve Bannon is a serial offender. He's been convicted now of contempt of Congress. He was convicted before and pardoned. Now he's also actively facing fraud charges. I think he only needs to be charged for January 6th to complete the MAGA trifecta of various federal crimes. But, for him, at least, Steve Bannon's time working with Donald Trump prepared him to spend a lot of time seeing the color orange.
You mentioned the color orange, and in an unrelated transition here on television, I want to ask you about Donald Trump. And that is, we hear so much from people who say, what good is this? Is this going to work? Even Trump critics sometimes seem to credulously believe his bluffs and his defiance. As we've noted in our coverage last week, he recently got a subpoena, and he was forced to comply. The New York Attorney General got more out of him than they got out of Bannon. Always interesting when some Trump aides go farther than even Trump, who, if nothing else, shows this keen self-interest instinct. And so I'm curious what you think comes next with this subpoena. I'm not talking so much about his bluster and social media, but if this were to be pursued in court, is there a strong legal argument to make a former president testify, even if we know that in the end, like his aides, he might avail himself of the Fifth Amendment right not to.
Yes, Ari. So there's a relationship between the bluster we see outside of court and then these legal proceedings, which I think are really important, both what's going on at Mar-a-Lago as well as what's going on in the January 6th committee. So the January 6th committee has now formally said, Trump, we're ordering you to come in and testify and tell us what happened on January 6th. Now, he has, he can try and fight it. I suspect he will, despite all the social media bluster, because this is a guy who took the Fifth Amendment more than 400 times in that New York State investigation that you mentioned. And so I think, it's likely that he'll do the same thing here. I mean, the one time Trump doesn't want to talk about the 2020 election is when he has to do so under oath. Because if you lie under oath, you face criminal consequences. Now, if he refuses, Congress could try and compel, and they've done that already, as you say, for Steve Bannon, as well as 3 other people, and try and force that testimony through a criminal prosecution at the Justice Department. That's never happened to a president. President Truman in 1953 was summoned by the House Un-American Activities Committee. He refused, and Congress didn't decide to try and seek enforcement of the subpoena there. So that's the only precedent I'm aware of, one way or the other. But certainly here, when we're talking about something as grave as what happened in our Capitol on January 6th, I think the committee would be absolutely right to subpoena him and to enforce the subpoena. And there's one other point I'd make, which is it's great that the committee did this for President Trump. But what about Vice President Pence? He was in the room for so many of these key things. He sent out his aides to go and testify. But it seems to me the right thing to do is to have this guy come and testify as well and tell us, the American people, what happened.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber. Thanks for watching The Beat. I wanted to let you know I'm writing a foreword to the January 6th committee's full report, which is coming out soon from HarperCollins. You can go pre-order the book right now, and it'll come to you first when the report comes out in the fall or whenever the government releases it. Just search Melber Jan 6th on Amazon or your favorite independent book site and click pre-order. You'll be the first to get both the report and my new piece on the coup conspiracy. You can also go to melberbook.com and order it there.